Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Ravlich, and I specialize in digital analytics and personalization, particularly within the Adobe Experience Cloud solutions like Adobe Target. Today, I'm excited to walk you through how you can leverage Adobe Target recommendations to create dynamic, personalized content experiences for your users. With experience working for companies like Yahoo, Bank of America, and Canon cameras, I've seen how powerful personalization can be. It's not just a buzzword. It's a strategy that can boost engagement, increase conversions, and keep your customers coming back for more. Let's dive into how we can make that happen with Adobe Target. So here's a little bit of what we're going to cover today. I'll give you a quick introduction to Adobe Target recommendations and the tool, how recommendations work, recommendations in a digital first world, how to get started with Adobe Target recommendations, a quick use case on Canon cameras and their content recommendations, some of the key benefits of personalization and personalized recommendations, and then some next steps. So first, let's talk about how Adobe Target recommendations actually works. Adobe Target uses machine learning to analyze user behavior and make real-time content decisions. In our case, we're focused on content in this specific one, but you can actually apply this to products. You can apply this to items on your site, using it for suggesting other products to purchase after a product has been purchased. So it's a very powerful tool. In this particular webinar, I'm concentrating only on content right now, but there's a lot of other use cases that we can look at. The beauty of Adobe Target is that it doesn't just recommend random articles. It gets smarter as users interact with the site. It begins by recommending popular content, and then as a user engages more, it refines that content and starts to give users what they want in almost real time. So imagine starting broad and then zooming in, delivering exactly what your users are looking for. So in a digital first world, personalized recommendations are the starting point for user interaction. Think about it. When you open Netflix or YouTube or even Amazon or your favorite news site, recommendations greet you, and that's where customers expect to start now. They want content tailored to their needs almost instantly. Adobe Target is helping brands in publishing, the travel business, sales, B2B sales, and even more, delivering recommendations in real time to enhance customer engagement. If these industries can drive success with recommendations, so can your business, for sure. So what makes for a great recommendations? There's three things here, but I'll just touch on quickly. When we ask this question to an audience, where do they see recommendations working well? One question I asked was, does Netflix have a really good recommendations engine, or does Amazon have a better one? Some people said Netflix, some people said Amazon, and other people didn't raise their hand at all. And so I asked those people, well, you don't think either of them have great recommendations? And I heard a lot of things like, well, I see things being recommended to me that aren't things that I would want. So maybe they don't have the best recommendation system in place. And so how do we get that relevancy? And that's the first piece of this. What makes great recommendations? Relevancy. Recommendations should feel timely and aligned with user preferences. And Adobe Target definitely can help you get to that piece. The other thing is sophisticated models. Adobe Target has advanced machine learning models built in to handle large content catalogs, so you don't have to. The next thing is user context. Recommendations become more personalized as Adobe Target learns from user behavior and interactions. So here we go. How do we get started with Adobe Target recommendations? So to start with recommendations, you first need to start with a strategy. And here are 3 questions that you want to ask yourself and your team. What content do you want to recommend? In this case, we're going to talk about recommending blog articles or videos. So more content that would be helpful for users that have purchased a product or are in the purchase process and want more information, that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to focus on today. But it could be things like, I know people have purchased item X, or say it's a cell phone. I know that they've purchased this cell phone from our website. Let's try to reach out to them with accessories that might go with that specific model. Things like that might be a good place to start with personalization. Where, again, here's the second piece. Where would these recommendations appear? Think about your website and where these recommendations might best perform. And talk to your team, talk to maybe even your design team around how best to showcase this information. Look at your data. Look into your analytics data. If you have Adobe Analytics for specific placements, look at your audiences and maybe find a good place where this would happen. And then again, how are you going to measure success? What is the why? Why are you doing personalization? And how will it be successful? This is such an important question. Are you looking to boost revenue per visit? Are you looking to boost average order value? Are you looking for engagement time? What is that metric that you want to increase? Or multiple metrics, but try to pick a main goal, maybe a few minor goals to start with, and then evaluate how that works on your site and how it should work with the activity you're personalizing. So now it's time to teach Target about your content. Target works in a way where you can upload your content catalog via CSV file. You can use APIs, or you can even integrate with Adobe Analytics data if you use Adobe Analytics with your team. Best way I've seen is using that CSV feed to start with, and then actually implementing target profiles, profile headers on your site, so that when a user actually interacts with content on the site, Adobe Target sees that content, and if it's brand new content, it can push it into the catalog from the API. But it also then sends that data into the user profile. And we're going to get into this in a minute, but Adobe Target looks at profiles and starts to build up the information based on what is being pushed into those profiles. And so when, say, for example, a user ends up going onto a specific blog post, Adobe Target then sees that in their profile and understands it, and then we can use that for recommending other content that they might want to see on a site, or use it in some other manner, but at least it's stored in their profile, and now we understand that this user might have a preference towards this. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So make sure you're passing the right metadata. Within that feed, you want to have a content title and URL, marketing attributes like rating or category, similar attributes like content type, tags, author. Those things might be included in this feed. This gives Target that context. Again, it needs to start recommending content intelligently, so it needs information. This is where we push it in, is through this feed. Okay, and next, now it's essential to track your user behavior. You want to know what content your users are viewing, clicking on, downloading. Adobe Analytics is great for this, but you can also use GA4 if you don't have that stuff. But that Target can also work with that piece as well. But the more user data you can capture, the better you can tailor the recommendations to your audience. And like I said, when you're using that API and pushing things into a profile, Target is getting that data so that it can act on it. All right. So to ensure your recommendations are spot on, you need to provide context. This includes details about the page the user is currently on and their profile information, like I mentioned as well. So for example, and I kind of talked about this a little bit already, if a user is reading a blog post about digital marketing, Adobe Target can recommend similar articles based on that category or their browsing history. It is how you personalize recommendations, ensuring that they are timely and relevant. So we want to make sure that that stuff is recognized. Okay, so once you have your content set up, you want to kind of look at how you're going to build your recommendations activity. It consists of three main parts. The audience. So number one, who will see those recommendations? Is it a specific audience? Are you blanketing all your users and wanting Adobe Target to use the criteria, which we'll talk about in a second, to recommend to those users? What is the best way to go forward? And second, the criteria, like I just mentioned, what content should be recommended. For example, most viewed articles would be recommended, or is it content similar to what the user has engaged with in the past? That criteria becomes extra important in this case. When you set up your criteria within Adobe Target, you have a plethora of options that you can go for. There's a bunch of built-in algorithms like view this, view that, which is item-based, which can basically show users things that other users have viewed based on the content they're viewing currently. So that works well. You can also bring in your own algorithms as well. So you're not limited to what's just there from Adobe. You can also start to bring your own into the system and build that. The other piece is you can build a criteria sequence, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, where you actually combined multiple algorithms together. I know we'll get to that in our use case when we get down to that piece. And then also the design. So how will the design of the recommendations be displayed? When I gave this presentation at MeasureCamp Toronto this past weekend, there was a question around, can you use AEM fragments in Adobe Target recommendations? Unfortunately, you need to build the design within the recommendations section of Target today. You can't use the content fragments, but you can reuse the CSS that your designer has for that particular content. So you can use the styling. And so that's when it becomes really important to work with your design team in this situation. So you do have to have a design built in the recommendations section. Adobe Target, just a side note, Adobe Target does work with experience fragments, but not in recommendations specifically. So you can use experience fragments in other places, but you need to use recommendations design specifically, which cannot leverage the AEM fragments. But there are ways to sort of complement both. And just a side note for people that do not have AEM, you can use any design you want to make it match your website look and feel within the content. It's very sort of customizable, but you do need to have a little bit of a work with your design team if you're not comfortable working in sort of CSS and things like that. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that when you are designing it, there are some out-of-the-box content designs like 3x3, 5x5, things like that within the Adobe Target Recommendations section that you can pull out and actually have your designer's style if you so need to. All right. So what's amazing about Adobe Target is that it learns from each user's interaction. The more your user engages, the more personalized the recommendations can become. It's a self-improving system. It's constantly adapting to provide more relevant content over time. And then finally, you need to measure success. Really great piece if you are an Adobe Analytics user and you have Adobe Target, using the A4T integration. We can actually track key metrics like click-through rates, engagement time, and more. And these insights let us know which recommendations are working and help us fine-tune the system and even better results. So basically using A4T, or if you have GA4, you can use that as well with the system. It does work. I've seen it work with other companies. You can definitely leverage this. And I always suggest testing and making it a cycle. So looking at, like, is the personalization working? Maybe having a control group that you can compare against the personalized piece and run it at the same time. So you get sort of like an apples to apples comparison. And then you can go in and analyze and see, okay, did we see uplift here? This did seem to work. Okay, how do we apply it? What can we change? What should we leave? Do we push this out to more users? How should we move forward? So always be checking the data and iterating, and then make it more of a cycle instead of like just, okay, we set up personalization, it's done. It's more of like an ongoing effort, in my opinion, but it gets easier over time. All right. So how could this work on your website today? I think hopefully this gave you some insight so far about where you could go with it. It can be adapted for various types of content. Like I mentioned, we're talking about content such as blog posts or articles or videos, things like that. But again, it could be used, probably a main case is around the products, and recommending things that people had viewed, or if they viewed this, view that for products as well. So again, just kind of thinking about where it would apply, tracking the behaviors and preferences of the users through the Adobe Target Recommendation system, but also through analytics so that you can measure. And so, I'm going to give you a quick example of a recommendations piece that was set up for Canon, where they wanted to tailor the content to users based on their preferences. So this is a content box here where the user just showed up. So this is a fresh user, never been on the site before. This content is using Adobe Target Recommendations. The first thing the user sees is content that was the most popular content seen across the site. So right away, they're getting recommended content that is popular to everyone, the most popular content on their site today. So say the user then clicks on some content and starts to look at specifically sports photography. They want to understand how to use their products for sports photography and taking photography of people moving and maybe very, very fast. And so they start to browse some of these articles. And then maybe they leave the site, go away for a couple of days, play around with their camera, take some shots, and then they return to the site. Well, now Adobe Target has captured that they've looked at this type of content, and now it's recommending content specifically for sports photography now, because they saw that was a category they were interested in. They viewed more than one of those articles. So now their content is actually tailored more and more for their specific uses and needs. And another use case on top of this is we understood that what product the user had if they logged in. And based on that login, we could actually then tailor the content to that specific camera so that they could get more out of their product that they'd already purchased, things like that. So this is just a couple examples of how Adobe Target has worked for other clients and boost engagement, and also created longer time on site, and you can use it for recommending more of those ancillary products and even other products, because maybe a user finds that one camera is better than the other for sports photography, and they go into a larger sale. So let's wrap up with the key benefits of Adobe Target Recommendations. Hopefully I've explained some of that to you already, but let's talk a little bit more. So increased user engagement. Users spend more time on your site when the content is relevant. I mean, there's no doubt in that. I think that doesn't just apply to Adobe Target Recommendations, but it probably applies to everything on your website. Higher conversion rates. Personalized recommendations drive more actions where that click, purchase, signups, start to move up. I've seen this on multiple client sites. I'll give an example of a client that we worked with where, in one quarter, they saw an improvement of, $200,000 of revenue increase from their subscription products. And in that time, they actually saw a decrease of 13% of impressions of their content. So they were able to actually using the personalized recommendations, they were actually able to generate more revenue in that time, even though their impressions had fallen off with this personalized type content. So there is benefit. I've definitely seen this work well for people, and it's not just fiction. It has worked and will work. Smarter content strategy as well. You can create more of what works best for your user preferences, and people and your users and your customers will appreciate that you are giving them this experience and helping them along the way by doing this. So what's next? I suggest, you dive into this, you start small, maybe recommending your most popular content and then like scaling from there, doing testing, iterating, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, try with different types of users. Just get out and start trying things. It seems a little complicated, but hopefully walking through this webinar gives you a little bit of a better idea of how to go forward. Use Adobe Analytics, a GA4 to track performance and optimize as you go over time. And then your website will become a personalized experience that keeps users engaged and coming back for more. So thank you. Yeah, that's it for me. That's the presentation. Hopefully you found it helpful and are excited about implementing Adobe Target Recommendations on your own site. And I'd love to hear if you have any questions or thoughts. Please get in touch. And I'm also going to try and do a little bit more of a technical deep dive on recommendations over the next coming weeks. So stay tuned for that. But thank you very much for listening. And I hope this helps you get started with Adobe Target Recommendations. Thank you.